This program was made possible by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
They got to trust you. You got to do what's right. You got to treat them like you want to be treated. That was always my motto, to treat others the way I wanted to be treated and help them any way that you can succeed in their business.
Jimmy Mackie, this is such a treat for me because literally I've known you my whole life.
Right,
And,
a long time.
That's true. And honestly, I've been such an admirer of you, and as so many people in our community have. You're the founder, CEO of IWC Food Service, and that is the largest food distribution, really I guess independently owned food distribution company in Tennessee, right?
Yeah, but one correction.
Okay.
I was not the founder.
You were not the founder?
No, I bought into the company in 1958, and Mr. Joe Gibson of Cookeville, he had retired from International Shoe Company, had graduated from UT Knoxville, and had after his career in selling shoes, he retired here in Cookeville and was a member of the Lions Club in Cookeville. And the Lions Club had a campaign on, we're going to get more businesses to come to Cookeville to help the economy. And so Joe, knowing, went to UT. There was a large distributor over there by the name of IJ, Institutional Jobbers Company. And he and Joe graduated together. I think they might have been roommates. And so Joe thought of Mr. Keller might be interested in putting a branch in Cookeville, a wholesale food company. He had a large company in Knoxville and was doing a lot of business. And so started out in the back of a station wagon selling fraternities and sorority houses. He
Just
would go,
food supplies?
Yes, ketchup and mustard and mayonnaise and little oddities they could cook in the houses, you know, they lived in. After I come back and graduated from Tech in 58, I met Mr. Joe Gibson. He had been here and had been in business a year selling groceries for Mr. Keller, who he went over, and he had a little small building down on Buffalo Valley Road, and he didn't store anything. He always said he'd go and take the orders, write up the orders. They'd go to Knoxville at midnight. They'd load his truck and come back and deliver to the schools and the hospital and the restaurants and all of his accounts. So that's, he saw my dad on the street corner one day and said, Mr. Mackie, do you know anybody want to buy a half interest in a two-man operation? Two-man operation. He said, well, my son just getting out of college for the second time and said he needs a job and said he might be interested. He said he wants to be an accountant. I wanted to be an accountant.
Not a salesperson.
No, not a salesperson. I never had any desire to be a salesperson.
Right.
So anyway, I went to talk to him, and he gave me all the information, what they've been doing for that 1 year. And so I took it to Dean Johnson, my dean of business at Tech, Lewis Johnson. And I said, Mr. Johnson, I said, would you mind looking over these papers and give me a recommendation to go into this thing or not go into it? I said, you think it's pretty good? And I think their sales the first year was about $125,000. Joe had sold about $125,000. And his salary was $100 a week. And that's what he took out of the business. And so I said, well, I went back after a week and asked Mr. Johnson, I said, well, what do you think? Do you think I ought to do it or not do it? He said, well, Jimmy, he said, I've looked it over. He said, it looks like a great opportunity. But said, I'm going to tell you one thing, you're looking for a lot of work to get into this.
Right.
So I was going to be just a partner to Joe. And so he said, I think you could do it. And so I told my dad, and he wanted, I believe it was $9,000 to buy a half interest of the
company.
No, I'm sorry, it's $18,000. He wanted $18,000 And,
to buy into the company.
Buy into the half interest of that little two-man. And what I got was a half interest in a truck, half interest in a desk, a half interest in a little ad machine, and a half interest in a 5-shelf Amana upright freezer like you'd have in your house.
Right.
We put French fries in for the Dairy Queen in case they run out. so that's what I got half interest of. And my wife wasn't happy, and her dad wasn't happy about it, and they didn't want me to do it. And I said, I've got to have a job.
Right.
I've got a son, 2-year-old son. I'm out of work. I've got a degree. I need to be doing something.
And was it hard work?
It was very, very difficult because I had never sold anything really. I sold papers when I was in school, in grade school. Had a Cushman motor scooter and delivered papers. That's the only job I'd ever had. So my dad just said, I'll sign your note at Citizens Bank, and you can borrow the money, and then you'll pay him off. And my dad gave a letter of a guarantee to Mr. Keller that anything that Joe and I bought, that my half would be guaranteed by him. So fortunately, I had a dad that had the ability to back me.
Right,
and so
and he believed in you and felt like you could make
and I knew
this.
that I was never going to let my dad pay that $18,000 off if I failed.
Right.
And so I
Right.
said, I'm going to work, and I worked day and night for several years there to make sure that I didn't. But
So what made it so successful? What do you think? I mean, obviously.
Well, I knew nothing. I went out on the route. My first stop was Allgood School. And Noble Cody was the principal. And Noble knew me, and he said, yeah, I'll buy some products from you. He said, I'll help you, being local and everything.
Right.
And I said, well, I sure appreciate it. And then I went on up to Rickman, and Mr. Gleason Frazier was the principal up there, and I talked to him and told him, I said, now I don't know much about this business. I said, I'm just getting started. I'm going to be very honest with you. And they had a price book that was about three inches thick, and all these items was itemized alphabetically. And I had to really learn those products. After a week or two, I knew that I had to know something about all the products,
Sure.
and I had to know the price.
Right.
You can't just go in and say, well, what's the price of your green beans?
Yeah.
I said, well, I don't know. I'll look it up, and I start looking up in the book, and I can't find it. And so it's embarrassing. So I
Right.
said, my wife said I'd come home at night, and I started memorizing the book.
Wow.
And so to be able to give them a price and tell them what I had.
Sure.
But I learned real early that you need to help the customer. They don't need to know all these numbers that are on these items. Everything has a number, and how it's packed, and how many servings you're going to get out of this and that, and how much you need for an order. So many people. So I had to learn all that.
Right.
And but after about a week or two, I first went to Knoxville and rode with Mr. Keller's salesman for a week. We went to Gatlinburg, and once we got up there with his salesman, we parked on one side of the road of Gatlinburg, downtown Gatlinburg, went up the end, called on every restaurant, every candy shop. We stopped at nursing homes, and then we crossed over and come down the other, and we loaded 3 truckloads of groceries. And
Wow.
I got motivated by that. I said,
bet.
this is nice.
Yeah.
I got interested in selling.
Sure.
And
Well,
so-
because it's relationship.
Yeah,
and
it was. I
you're
was
very
calling
much-
all these companies. I was telling these customers that I was going in business in Cookeville, and
Right.
So I stayed a week up there and rode with that salesman and learned a lot. Learned a lot on how they did it.
How important are relationships, Jimmy, to business?
The most important. You just really got to have a relationship. They got to trust you. You got to do what's right. You got to treat them like you want to be treated. That was always my motto, to treat others the way I wanted to be treated and help them any way that you can succeed in their business. And that's what we preach today.
Right.
We have these sessions with our employees when they first start, and we try to put that notion in their minds that treat your customers honestly, fairly, help them all you can to succeed, and be a consultant to them. That's the secret right there.
So then you're not really selling; you're just helping someone
Helping them
in
with
their
their
business.
yeah. And they didn't have to know the numbers of
Right.
what the number was on a lid for a cup, different size cups, and so many items. You tell them how many servings they're going to get out of number 10 can of green beans and all that. So there's a lot of things you can do to help them.
Sure. You've been in this business now 60 years, and how old are you?
I'm 84 years old.
And you're still working every day?
Every day.
Why?
8 to 5.
Why are you still working every day?
Well, I enjoy it. I really enjoy the business. We had a manager over a buying group. We belonged to the Frosty Acres buying group out of Atlanta, Georgia. We joined that group in 1969, and they later on had 2 or 3 managers that I'd known. But the last manager before he retired, he always got up and said, "I love this business." He loved this business, and he just enjoyed coming to work every day and working with it. And I told him I felt the same way. I just really fell in love with it. Never did get tired of it. Couldn't wait till the next day to go out and call on my customers and run the route, when I was running the route. And so, but it's definitely a relationship business.
And you've gone from 2 employees to you have 200 employees?
200 and about 40 employees.
Wow.
Now.
And you started with 1 truck, and now you have over 50?
50 or 60 trucks,
wow.
I guess.
I mean, what a testament of how you grow a business. But in doing that, you have to take a lot of risk, don't you?
I did, and I had no operating capital. What's the Ramsey guy, Dave Ramsey?
Yes.
He wouldn't agree with the way I started in business because I didn't have any. After I borrowed that $18,000 from the bank, I had no operating capital, and my salary was $100, the same as Joe Gibson. We both withdrew $100 a week. That was our salary, but when the bills started coming in, I learned real quick no operating capital to pay these bills until I collected from my customer.
Right.
Our school accounts and our bigger accounts like that was all on monthly basis. They paid once a month. Our restaurant business was on 7 days. You call on this week and collect next week. And so I had to be a real good collector in order to pay those bills that I was getting from IJ Company from buying those products. Because he gave me maybe a 2 weeks credit line that I could pay in 2 weeks, But it was very tight the whole time getting started. And I wouldn't advise anybody to do that now. I would go the Dave Ramsey route. Have at least 3 months of operating capital on hand.
Right.
And operate.
Now, you worked with your brother at one point.
My brother had gone to, in 1952, he was at Tech, and Korea started, and he and about 18 or 20 Cookville boys went and joined the Air Force. They didn't want to go to the Army because they didn't want to go to Korea.
Right.
So they said, we'll join the Air Force and we won't have to go to Korea. Well, after their basic training out in Texas, they went out there and got basic training. The next thing I knew, he was in Korea.
Oh, my goodness.
Stayed over there about over a year. And so a lot of the local boys, they had an article in the paper how many of them went. Volunteers. We were volunteers,
Right.
And so he come to work. After he got out of the Air Force, he had to sign up for 6 years active duty. And he got out of the Air Force in 1960. And that's when he come to work. He wanted to be a salesman for me. And so my dad owned the Studebaker business at one time, and my brother Leroy, he sold cars. So that had been his selling experience.
Wow, okay. So he could
he had
come
a little
in
salesman, but when he went back to Tech and graduated in 60, he majored in history. He was a history major. So
well, it's ironic that now your 2 sons are in your business, and they are leading the business as well with you, Bob and John. John works out of Nashville, right? Bob
has a CPA practice in Nashville, accounting, and graduated from Tennessee Tech. And then Bob graduated in engineering, and he got a job after 2 years in, I think, Manchester. He worked for that Arnold Engineering Company there, and then he wanted to go back and get his business degree, so he got an MBA degree from Vanderbilt.
Oh,
And
wow.
after he graduated from that, he moved. He got a job with FedEx in Memphis, and moved to Memphis and worked down there about 9 years. And so after Leroy and I had a buy and sell agreement, and he was about ready to retire in '97, and so I asked Bob if he wanted to come back and get into business and manage the company and sort of take it over in 1997, and he said he would. And he had gotten married and moved his wife here, and now he started out just sort of like I did, going out and calling on restaurants. He had his own route. He wanted to learn the business, and he called on the restaurants and the schools and different types of restaurants, and get the feel of it. And so anyway, he's done an excellent job. And then
Yes.
John does all of our accounting work. He's the treasurer of the company, and Bob now is the president.
Is there any job you haven't done?
No, including cleaning the bathrooms, the delivering on the trucks, selling, doing all the bookkeeping for many years. I've had to do it all,
I bet.
from start to finish.
You've always expanded, though. You changed out. You became very energy efficient. I saw that where you changed out all your lighting and won an
Right,
award for
right.
that. And
Yes.
you've expanded your facility. You've
Right.
moved facilities.
Right.
Well, it takes a lot of guts to make those kinds of expansions.
It does. During the whole career, it was always trying to manage your capital, because we had to do everything we did out of our profits. If we had to buy a truck or a forklift or expand the building and hire new employees, you had to pay that out of your profits, you know. And we were always having to pay bills for our inventory, to have the inventory. And then, of course, back in the 70s, I think the schools all started doing a bid system. And before that, you just call on the schools and get the order. If they liked you, if they liked the product, then maybe you'd get the business. And but now it's all on bid. You have to give them a price and guarantee it for the 9 months period, and you can't go up. And you've got to make sure. You know, when the companies decide to raise prices, there's nothing I can do about it.
Right.
We have to buy it at their prices, and then if we bid it at a certain price, we could lose money. It's sort of a gamble.
What advice would you give, Jimmy, to someone maybe just starting out, someone who was like you years ago, getting
I
out?
would advise them to be sure that they've got. I wouldn't buy a company like that to start out with. I think that was. I didn't really. I was just motivated. I needed a job, and I was willing to work day and night. I had a family to support, and I was willing to do anything. But a lot of people today probably wouldn't be willing to do that, because to start out with no operating capital and in debt $27,000 is a pretty hard thing to do. And I mean, you just had to do everything you could to keep the business going and building. You had to do more every year than you did the year before, because prices were going up, and it was hard to make it.
Right. And who mentored you? Who would you say mentored you in those years?
Well, I don't know that I really had once I got into the buying group, I felt more comfortable being in, because this was a pretty good size. These were some large distributors. They'd started back in right after World War II, like Mr. Keller did, and they had big businesses, and they were all getting of age. They wanted to sell out or put their sons in the charge of the business, and I think probably being a member of that, because they had conferences where you could learn what to do. I had nobody when I started. I was just on my own, other than what information I could get out of the Knoxville warehouse, and we were far apart.
I know also you're a man of faith. How important has your faith been to your business, to your life? You're very much a community citizen.
Right, yeah. Well, my wife always said that even though I worked all those number of hours, 12, 14 hours a day, that I always tried to take my children, my two boys, to ball games or wherever they needed to go. I'd take time out to be sure that they got to do the things they wanted to do, and that I always attended church and maintained my religion,
Right.
And I served as elder at Will Avenue for 13 years.
Will Avenue Church of Christ.
Yeah, and I was a deacon before that. And,
Right.
and my mother took me to church when I was a toddler. I was probably 5 years old. But anyway, I've been doing church for ever since I've known.
You're a giving person. You've given so much to the community. Why?
Well, I just want to give back. I feel like that the community's been good to me, and I've worked hard and tried to have been pretty successful, I'd say, over the period of time I've been in, and I've never felt like it. I don't think money was my motivation to be in the business, to make a lot of money, and I've always felt like other people, they need finances a lot of times, and especially the college, and I give the church and charities and all that type of thing. I enjoy doing that.
Why did you keep your business in Putnam County? You could have moved it anywhere, I'm sure. You could have had it in Nashville.
We really wanted to be here. I think I was a Cookeville boy and raised up here. I wanted to have the business here. We looked at about, never found a location that was suitable, we thought. So we found 22 acres here in Allgood, and it was a farm, and right out next to 111, right next to I-40. And it was so handy, and we'd be up here out of the way, and so we just thought this was a perfect spot, and it's proved out to be a great location for distribution, where we're that close to 111, and we can go on our routes that way, 5 minutes to I-40, and we're east and west.
Right.
So it's a great area. I mean, great location for us.
So what's next for you?
I don't know. I'm gonna probably live my life out here. I stay busy. I own a farm out here that I love to go out and I do mowing with a tractor, John Deere tractor, air conditioned, XM radio in it with my music, and I enjoy doing that on weekends. We have our company parties out there every year. Have birthday parties, and we just enjoy the little farm. I enjoy keeping it clean. And my brother, we bought it together, and he didn't want to do anything, didn't want to clean it up or mow the grass. He said, I just want one that'll grow up. And I said, well, after a year, I've worked on it and cleaned it up and kept it clean. And I said, Leroy, how about me buying your half interest out? He said, okay. He said, I don't want to do any work on a farm. And I enjoyed it. I want everything clean and neat and trimmed, and that's what I get my joys out of.
And no one would believe you're 84 years old. So what's your secret to a healthy and long life?
Well, I've had bypass surgery in '86, and then I had a stent put in 2008, I believe it was. I've been going to the rehab program where you go since 2000.
Cardiac rehab.
Yeah, cardiac rehab. I go over there 3 days a week and exercise about 45 minutes. And I try to, with that exercise and everything and the work I do and working on the farm, I just keep active. I don't know. I just try to eat healthy as much as I can.
Right. Will you ever retire?
I doubt it. I doubt if I'll ever retire. I don't think I will. I don't know what I'd do. I don't think I've got enough work at the farm to keep me busy. I could work out there a lot, but you're not as strong as you was when you were younger. So it's sometimes pretty hard on you to go out there and pick up rocks and limbs and work all day. But I enjoy it. I enjoy it.
Well, Jimmy, this is, I knew we'd run out of time. I knew we
Yeah, I
wouldn't
knew
have
it was
enough
gonna
time
go like that.
to talk. But is there anything else you would like to add that you think you'd like to share with me or with the folks watching?
Well, I've enjoyed every minute of my career, and I enjoy staying active in, say, Tennessee Tech. I enjoy being a part of that work, a part of the work at the church and the chamber. I just really feel like I need to give back and be a part of it. I grew up here, and I enjoy staying connected. You know,
Well,
having friends and people that I knew.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad you are. I'm glad you're not going to retire.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for this opportunity.
Well,
It's just
thank
been
you. I've
great.
enjoyed talking to you.
This program was made possible by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.